Jeff Batchin invited me to do a installation piece that would kind of run between the Govett-Brewster Art Gallery and the Len Lye Centre. In the hallway, the big main hallway with the architectural sort of facade. And when he asked me this, I was felt like it was a little bit of a challenge because I've never worked in a space that big before and with such strong architectural features. But one of the things that my work does is try to respond to the space that it's in, and the architecture obviously is a big part of that. So I use the architecture in the gallery space as a sort of template for the work. And so that's what drove all of the formats and forms that take place in the work, is looking at pieces of architecture that I could use as sort of markers to initiate my own thinking. So one of those markers was the two doors that feature quite heavily in the sort of hallway. They sort of they're quite large, and especially the one down the end that is floor to ceiling. It sort of has a door that goes into the education centre, and then there's a floor to ceiling sort of skylight and window. So that was one of the main focuses of the work, was, how do you make a installation piece that responds to that in a sort of way that makes sense, and also that sort of enhances the gallery space and sort of comments on what the architecture is already doing. The work consists of a large 5-piece wall painting that works floor to ceiling. That's done with this sort of quite high pigment matte black paint. And also I've got large sheets of thick transparent acrylic that is modeled off the dimensions of the two doors that feature in the work. So they lean against the wall and connect with the wall painting in a sort of physical way. So the way the acrylic is leaning against the wall acts as sort of a driver of the rest of the wall painting, and you'll notice when you go into the gallery that it's sort of this seamless thing. I painted on the acrylic sheets the same type of paint that features on the wall painting, so that there would be a sort of physical connection between the sort of sculptural aspects of the work and the more two-dimensional planar pieces of the work. Also, there underneath the acrylic is a photographic component that's made from the apex that features in the work quite heavily. That becomes a photographic representation in the work. So the idea is that there's all these different layers, and each one is sort of making a comment on the next, and you can't really tell what is behind and what is in the foreground. So it plays with volumetric and planar space at the same time. I've been doing sort of installation works for about 5 years now. I started off as a photographer. Early part of my practice was just black and white photography. I would make representational images in the darkroom. And the point that I've gotten to now in my work is one of sort of multidisciplinary. I use photography as a kind of driver for the rest of my practice. With this work, I would look at it as sort of sculptural installation, photography and painting, all sort of coming together in one work. But when I think about my installation work, it's sort of the pinnacle of my practice. Everything else acts as sort of studies for what I try to do in situations like this. So this work sort of represents a lot of thinking and a lot of time spent making smaller images that would be seen as sort of more less conceptual, I guess, and more conventional. I do painting. I do a lot of painting on photographs, on top of photographs, and so this sort of combines all of these different techniques that I've slowly been accumulating over my career.